Nothing.
And I have two new people here. Haber and Eastman are joining us.
Okay. Should I repeat everything that I said?
It's good practice.
The meeting was called to order by, and is meeting virtually by order pursuant to the governor's emergency order. And the meeting is now being recorded. Roll call, please.
Trustee Clayton,
Here.
trustee Dickon, trustee Eastman,
Here.
trustee Haber,
Here.
trustee Hollander,
Here.
trustee Jamerson.
Here.
Thank you.
I'm here too. May I have a motion for the approval of the minutes of the meeting of December 21?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion, comments, questions? Seeing none, roll call.
Trustee Clayton,
Aye.
trustee Dickon, absent, trustee Eastman,
Aye.
trustee Haber,
Abstain.
trustee Hollander,
Aye.
trustee Jamerson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, minutes are approved. Next order of business is the approval of bills. Do I have a motion for the approval of bills?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, now do I have any questions or comments, please? There are a couple of
Actually,
items.
no. Sorry.
God,
I looked
really?
and I looked and I looked. I couldn't find
Honestly?
anything this time.
All right, well, okay, there are a couple of things that I saw that I would, that are being addressed. And the first one is a miscoding. There's a check that was coded on the last page, item 952, that was coded to Halloween donations, and that just isn't right. So we're gonna, that is being corrected. And I think that was the only thing I had right now, but I did have one thing. So are there any other comments or questions on the bills? Okay, seeing none, roll call.
Trustee Clayton,
Aye.
trustee Dickon, absent, trustee Eastman,
Aye.
trustee Haber,
Aye.
trustee Hollander,
Aye.
trustee Jamerson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next item is Treasurer and Finance Committee report. Trustee Clayton, do you have something for us today?
Nothing particular. I sent out the November financials. The village is basically on plan or a little ahead of plan on the plan that we first put together in 2020. So things continue, and now we'll be moving into the end of the year closing, which will take a little longer, and we'll go from there. That's it.
Are there any questions? Next item is the Director of Community Services report. Our Director of Community Services, as you all know, is also a mayor of a village here in the state of Illinois, and he had a meeting this evening. But I spoke with him this morning, and he wanted to update us on the opening of the Poached Egg. The opening of the Poached Egg is actually conditional for 2 weeks, depending, and it's conditioned on the approval of the fire department. For the items noted in the letter that Pat Glenn wrote, has to do with the hood in the kitchen and a fire panel. So if they don't get those things sorted out, then he will have to close until they are. The director and I are going to work on a revision of our liquor license. It's a little hard to do when it's, the liquor license asks for an application to be attached for a state of Illinois liquor license, and actually the state of Illinois liquor license asks for a copy of the local liquor license in order to be considered. So it's kind of a contradictory thing. So we're going to sort those things out and make sure that that all works easily. He had nothing else before us. Are there any questions that I might pass along to the director? Yes, trustee Jamerson?
Just real quickly, so is the poached egg open or not? Because I went by there 2 days ago and it still said they were opening soon. Are they open now?
I'm thinking it's tomorrow morning. I
Oh.
could be wrong on that.
Okay,
I could be wrong on that.
but
We had
that
that
opening
window.
is- But the opening is conditional upon them getting the 2 items that you mentioned taken care of within the
Right.
next 2 weeks.
Right,
Okay, thank
Right.
you.
right. Trustee Hollander?
Yeah, maybe it's when this happens, which is rarely, maybe to have a little section in the Village Voice about new businesses that are open in the village that some of us may not be aware of. It certainly helps them to succeed. It spreads the word, and we benefit from it as well as they do. So maybe as things open up, maybe it only happens once or twice a year, but we can give a little paragraph to help those businesses spread the word.
That's a good idea. I will tell you that Katie is putting that up on the electronic sign. And I'll ask her if it's too late for the Village Voice. So that's a great idea. We do need to be a little bit more supportive. Any other items? Okay, moving on to the consultants' reports. The attorney's report is first, please.
Hello, everyone. I sent out a brief update on Thornton's. If you have any questions, please let me know. But basically, their sign package was improved, we think. Trustee Hollander and I worked with them to get them to tone down one of their signs. Their photometrics have improved. I think Hecklin's people are still looking at it, but they basically took us through a pretty detailed review with their lighting designer, how the lights work, how they're programmable. It's very informative. They have a set of issues with CubeSmart that they have worked through in concept. They have a signed agreement with CubeSmart, but the next step to implement is to actually amend the cross easement agreement that affects CubeSmart and Thornton's and the village, because we're a member of that group of properties. We own Outlot A. So they had a little bit of a stumbling block. The general counsel at CubeSmart, with whom they've been working for months, suddenly quit or left. And it took CubeSmart a while to find somebody to pick up the reins, but they have found such a person. They feel a lot of forward movement now. They think all of the issues but 1 or 2 are largely resolved. So these are some of the details that sort of emerged as we spent more time looking at the final list of documents that were going to be approved in the zoning, and we just wanted to make sure that they were in order. So we think we will be on track, and we'll keep you posted before the next meeting. Next thing I can mention briefly is about Lexington.
Can we ask a question about Thornton's? before we
Sure.
go?
Absolutely.
So if you look at your plan, I have just 2 questions. The plan that was attached to your email, Bruce,
Yes,
the site plan has in the upper left-hand corner all the signs with letters. The last one is a D sign, but I think it's supposed to be an E sign. I just want to make sure there's not going to be 2 signs where D is located, and because there's nothing showing on the E side of the building, which would be the north wall of the building, the north wall, not the building, the north wall of the gas canopy.
So
I'll
what you're-
check. I'll check that there shouldn't be a sign on the north wall of the canopy. I don't think that was ever part of their.
Because right now they show an E, but there is no place, there's nothing on the site plan that tells you what E is. But if you look at the upper left-hand corner, there's 2 Ds, and it seems to me that the second D is really supposed to be an E.
Okay, we'll
So-
check that. We'd always heard that there would be a canopy sign on south and east. And I don't recall, I think that was there one on the north as well?
Well, the site plan, what Mike's saying is the plan shows a sign on the south side, the west side, which makes sense, and the north side, which probably also makes sense. But what he's saying is that in the upper left-hand corner where the legend is, it shows all those signs, but it shows 2 D signs instead of D and E. So I think what Mike is saying is that that second D should be an E, which is the canopy sign on the north side of the canopy facing Deerfield Road.
Okay,
Right, Mike? Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. And if that's consistent with what we're agreeing to.
we'll make a note and look at it.
Mhm.
That is what they're showing on page 8. So I think the page with 2 Ds on it is, you're correct, that last D should have been an E, because in the detail they show later in the submittal is the sign on the north side of the canopy.
Okay, well, I don't have that, so I guess. So, and then the other thing is the distance between A3 and A2. A2 is, I'm sorry, A1 and A3. A1 and A3. That distance is just like the frontage of CubeSmart, right?
Correct.
Yes,
And so is that really necessary to have another Thornton sign there?
that sign is at their right end. That's what you're looking at, as opposed to the sign that they would share with CubeSmart that would be further east.
Oh,
And-
because the other one is a right out, not a right in. Right? The A1 sign
All right,
is
let
a
me,
right out, not a right in. So you're saying that they need signage there because that's the right in off of Deerfield Road.
Right. Their initial submittal had effectively an A1 sign at the A3 location as well. Bruce and Trustee Hollander were successful in convincing them that they only needed to show the gas prices at the right in, right out, and they didn't need to repeat the gas prices on Deerfield Road. So the idea is that if you are westbound on Deerfield, you can see the price on the sign A1 in time to turn in at the sign A3.
Okay, I think I'm okay with that. All right, thanks for the explanation.
Are there any
next,
other questions right now on Thornton's? Any other questions? Okay, excuse me, Bruce, please continue.
next quick update is just about Lexington, because I don't think it was elsewhere on the agenda. We had a lengthy meeting with them, and we set up, as a result of that meeting, 2 follow-up meetings. I think one is going to be tomorrow with Pat and Lee Brown and the design team from Lexington. And then another follow-up meeting will be with all of us to see what resulted from that meeting. The main issues seem to be that we think there are more creative ways to arrange the townhome buildings on the site, or we've suggested, Tesca Associates suggested a more creative way to arrange them around the site. That arrangement, from a design appearance standpoint, is beautiful, but from a lot of considerations that Lexington may have in mind in terms of ease of construction, efficiency, a lot of other factors that we're probably not thinking about, they found it, very objectionable. So the current design that they have submitted is, somewhat regular in appearance. I mean, almost buildings are all sort of in a very urban courtyard setting. We were trying to arrive at something that had a little more open green space for the townhome units. Don't really know what the outcome of our discussions will be, but we decided we would put all the design people together and see what they could knock out together. I don't know, Pat, if you have anything else to add.
Not really. We're still working out the details of the stormwater requirements, not only for the Lexington development, but also for Lake County. So I'm not sure how far the design team is going to be able to take, because some of that we just got to them, actually the last of it this afternoon. Hopefully, the big question before us was, do they really need as much stormwater storage as they were showing? Or can that be still, meeting requirements, but can it be shrunk and then allow for more flexible land plans? So we'll see what they've come up with tomorrow.
Trustee Hollander, did you have a question? I saw your hand.
I think
Trustee Jamerson, I see you next.
just to get the idea that we're trying to, assuming that the structural elements of the land are going to permit it to be a little bit better look to the site. It may be that the restrictions they're working with may in the end dictate how the buildings have to be placed. We're hoping to change that so that it's a little bit more in tune with Riverwoods than it is with an Army barracks.
Trustee Jamerson, did you have anything to add?
Well, I mean, I was just going to suggest that if there's an issue with them saying there's a constructability issue, that they can't do something or they can do something, if you need someone's opinion that is in the construction industry, I'd be happy to give it. Nobody has asked me,
Writing that
so,
down.
you know, but. if
Rick,
you
that
need-
wasn't really, that really isn't it. It's really how the land forces them to place the buildings,
Okay,
as I understand it. And I'm sure there will be an increased cost if they have to change some of the stuff, but that's,
okay, well,
it's a few weeks.
if it comes to a constructability issue, if they say something just can't be done because it's not efficient or it's not something else, I'm available to make a comment. It may not be the right comment, but I'm available for making comment.
There's something to be said about people having plans and just putting them on the land without considering anything other than their plans. So, thank you for that.
Okay, the last thing I wanted to mention is that the council for the developers on the 37 acres had been in conversations with us, go back and forth, and it seems as if that they've decided at this point that they are interested in pursuing annexation with Riverwoods as opposed to anyone else, and asked me to prepare a petition for annexation, which I did last week, which would be conditional on having an annexation agreement. I've tried to map out a timeline of all the various steps we would have to go through to create a zoning district, have hearings with the Plan Commission, have hearings on forming a TIF, have hearings on the possible annexation agreement, a redevelopment agreement with respect to the TIF matters. So it's a lot of things to pull together. I've reached out and gotten some advice from a firm that could act as bond counsel if we ever got to that point, just so that we were like doing everything in as orderly a fashion as we could. And the first step, really, I suggested to them, if they're serious, is to file a petition for annexation so that we know that they're serious. And coincidentally, when you file a petition for annexation, it means you're first in line, and you come before another incorporating entity. So I'm waiting for them to get back to us. We just sent that out, I think Thursday or Friday of last week, so haven't had it very long. And I've been working out some ideas on a zoning district. The particular latest iteration of a plan that they showed us was considerably smaller, not still a very large building, but considerably smaller than the very first iteration that we saw. The last one that we saw was approximately 325,000 square feet. And from what we can see on the very preliminary concept plan, there would be a buffer yard on the east and on the north that we could landscape and berm and do things like that. I mean, obviously subject to a lot more digging into the details. So just an update, if they submit the petition, then we'll start coordinating with a bunch of people in terms of possible zoning and things like that.
Trustee Clayton?
At one point, listening to all the complicated steps that you say need to be done and the whole breadth of all those steps, at one point we had promised them that we would fast track their application, I think, in order to make it more attractive for them to come into Riverwoods. As we sit here today, what does that mean, fast track? And what are we going to do differently than we would do otherwise?
So The timeline I prepared had us granting final approval. Had they gotten the petition into us, say at the end of December, sometime in May. And their counsel suggested that even that was being too aggressive, even for them. And if we could have approval sometime in July or so, say 6 months, that would be fantastic. So the timeline that I put together it's a kind of a, there's a lot of steps where you can't take one step until you've taken the other kind of thing. And I've interleaven various approval tracks. There's a zoning track, there's a TIF track, there's an annexation track. And so I have various things going on at different times, which is what I mean by fast tracking, because instead of taking everything sequentially and in a patient fashion, we're sort of really jumping it all in together. So I think they appreciated that.
I think just for information purposes and background, I just wanted to mention that our attorney has also been doing some research into distribution centers and how those things have been approached at different areas, different places in the United States, and in different fashions, including looking at certainly we know about noise and lights, but other ecological types of issues. So we want to look at this very broadly and consider when we zone that we include some of those things where we can without going past and losing the 37 acres. Trustee Jamerson.
Just two quick comments. So, when you say a building's 300 and some thousand square feet, it's hard for people to get a handle on what that is. Just as a point of reference, Woodman's is about 240,000 square feet. So if you can imagine the size of that building, in the future when they come back with a size. The other thing we might want to look at, and I don't know if it will push them away or not, but with a building that size, it'd be nice to see if they would put some kind of solar panels on the roof. Tons of space up there. There's no trees. That would be a perfect application. I don't know if that's something we can, I don't know when you insert that into the conversation, but I think it'd be worth them looking at.
Those are some of the things that we have been making a list of.
He's been doing his research.
So that's it for me.
Is there any other questions for our attorney at this point? Okay, moving forward, the engineer's report, please.
A brief update on the Saunders Road Phase 1. Next week, we'll get notices out for the required public hearing, open house for that project. It's just another required step in the federal process. We'll do it as an open house at Village Hall, following all the CDC guidance and for masking and social distancing, but there's no, the feds never came up with a fully remote workaround for these required public hearings, or open houses. So those notices will publish in the paper. I'll get them over to the village to put on the website, and then we'll also mail them. There's not a specific requirement for who you mail to. Typically what we advise is mail it like any zoning requirement. So it'll effectively be all the folks on Saunders Road and then the property behind them as well. We'll get a direct mailing, but we could put something up on the village sign as well. We're not trying to hide anything. So, and that will be on February 10th will be that public meeting. And then the water meter upgrade project on one hand is proceeding along. As of today, we're about 2/3 of the way through all of the meter upgrades. We did get a bit of a surprise. I never thought too hard about it because I don't have an antique cell phone, but we were suddenly alerted that the carriers are shutting down the 3G networks. And while the old water meter equipment used radio frequency to communicate to the two gateway antennas that we have, those two gateway antennas use 3G modems to transmit it back to the village. So as of December 20th, we stopped getting reads from those, roughly 250 meters that are out there. The workaround I've suggested, and we haven't finalized it, is most of the remaining meters that have not been upgraded, their billing cycle's not coming up until the end of February. So if we can get them upgraded before then, we'll get current reads as soon as they're upgraded. No harm, no foul. We'll have a few of the customers whose bills go out in January. I think we just consider those to be estimated bills. The network shut down December 20th. So those bills won't have those last few days, that last week or so of December on them. But we'll catch them up with the next billing cycle. And then some of the commercial properties, we're just going to have to read manually in January and February to keep them current. So I initially expressed some outrage with Midwest Meter. How could you let this happen? And then when I came to fully understand what happened, this was just the carrier stopped providing service, and we can't get LTE modem replacement modems. The delivery on them is 2 months out, and by then we should be done with the project. So it's a bit of rather unfortunate timing for us.
Imagine my surprise.
That's all I've got.
That's really. Isn't that enough? Are there any questions for our village engineer? You are a remarkable person, Pat Glenn. Your patience and really, you're a remarkable person. Thank you.
You have to be a patient man to grow a beard like this.
See, I was thinking that and I didn't say it.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. God. Okay, the ecologist, well, it's winter. So what I might say here is that the hazardous tree survey is out there. We're getting questions, of course, and we've got a great team that's helping us to answer those questions. Pat Glenn has stepped in naturally, and Kirsten Stewart from Urban Forest Management. They're answering those questions. Some of you might have trees that you didn't know you had. There are other, but generally speaking, we're getting most of those answered pretty easily. I'm going to report to you that what I did is I emailed Lucas from my personal email and said, here's what the letter says. And I'd like to talk to you about the pruning part. I got an answer within, I don't know, half hour, definitely an hour. Had a little quote attached to it and a message saying, call us and we'll come out and talk to you. So email works great. And again, they aren't the decider of where trees are, where lot lines are. But I found that to be very responsive and really, quite easy to do. So just reporting back on that. So in case anybody has questions. I just did that this evening too. So this is fresh. Plan Commission report, please.
Yes, I'd like to follow up on what Bruce said on the Lexington Homes meeting. The compensatory storage requirement will be very critical in determining the design. And as Henry said, we hope that the buildings do not look so barracks-like, because right now they are very urban and I wouldn't call it attractive. Hopefully there'll be more room for green space, more seating areas, and hopefully there'll be a big improvement on what we've seen. Secondly, we also discussed affordable housing. Lexington had not yet done anything. We've asked them to get in touch with a nonprofit affordable housing provider, organizer, and hopefully they will move forward on that.
Are there any questions? Thank you. Well, we have the Chair of the Zoning Board of Appeals with us this evening, but I really don't think we had a meeting. But welcome, Sherry, and thank you for being here. If you have something to say, feel free. Okay, moving on, the police report, please.
I just have the police activity that is in your packets. That's all I have.
Trustee Clayton.
Just out of curiosity, Chief, in the report that's in the packet, at the very end of the report, the second to the last and third to the last two lines, one says persons issued citations, and the second one says citations issued. And I just wondered what the difference between those two things were.
So many people get more than one citation, especially DUIs. They get issued multiple citations. So basically what this report says, if you look at the number of traffic stops, for instance, in 2021, traffic stops, so we stopped 2,441 people. And of the people we stopped, 576 of them were issued at least one citation, for a total of 848 citations issued.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for the chief? Okay, my turn. What you have is a schedule of board meeting dates. And our next meeting in January is the 18th. I made an error on the preliminary agenda and said it was the 20th or something like that. Anyway, as we move forward, what we'll try to do is if we've got, for example, the 4th of July holiday where the meeting is on the 5th, maybe we'll take a poll and see who will be here and who won't if we don't have a quorum and so forth. So we'll move through the year and just check in from time to time. If you're going to miss a meeting or you're going to miss some meetings, it would be very helpful if we knew in advance for planning purposes. It has been the practice in the past. If you know you're going to miss a meeting and there's an item coming up that you really wanted to be present to discuss or to make your opinions known or to vote, it has been the practice in the past, if possible, to hold that item over until the trustee is able to be there. But again, they're not every, you can't do it with every single item, but there has been a courtesy extended in the past. So I just wanted to relay that. The next thing I have on there is the development of a village organization chart. And it's been an interesting 8 months, culminating with the antenna or the transmission of information to Beacon and so forth. I mean, we've had the thermostat go out. We didn't have heat. We had, a door locking situation. We've had all kinds of electrical stuff. We're still waiting to replace our fire panel. So I've learned a lot of things about the building and the operations that have taken away a little bit of my attention away from what I'd really like to do. And that is to take a good look at the organization and get some good position descriptions. We do need more staff. We are thinly staffed and our people are to be commended for holding it together and just stepping up and doing stuff I don't think they knew they signed up for. But we keep it moving forward. We do need staff. I think an organizational chart is something that will undergird what positions we need and the who does what, and try to focus on resident services a little bit more. And by resident services, I mean things like supporting the Village Voice, communications, the website, and general assistance with questions and complaints. We get calls all the time. And they take time and they take patience and you need to focus on those kinds of things. So in order to do that, what I've been digging back into is we had a strategic plan that was developed in 2015. And there was some good work done there. And I'm hoping that's going to give me a good background to move forward with an organizational chart that not only is consistent with what we've talked about with the past, but maybe taking us forward a little bit. So there's homework to be done here. And I'm not ready to bring my draft organizational chart to prime time. So you will have ample opportunity to take a look at that. So reviving the strategic plan is all part of that. And development of priorities for 2022. We've got a couple of big things out there, and that is finishing off Thornton's. Certainly the 37 acres is going to be a big topic in Lexington Homes. So those things are very important to the future of our village for development, for growth, financial stability from Thornton's for sure. The other thing that's really more resident focused is that water infrastructure project. And the Water Infrastructure Committee has met a couple of times and is due to meet again in January, closer to the end of January. The goal is to bring a plan to the board for the board to discuss. And that plan would be just to bring water mains to those parts of the village that do not have water mains. We're not talking about linking everybody up. We're talking about putting mains in and setting some costs. So there's a lot of financial analysis to be done so that it's cost neutral to our current residents. They're not going to be disadvantaged in any financial way by a water main going in across town. So that's a big project. And again, that's something that the board we want to get a plan that the board can react to and we can discuss and move forward with that. Having said all that, what I would like to know from the trustees is what your 2022 priorities might be. I know there are some other things out there that need to be completed. One of them is completing the campus. And that meaning that all the paths behind me need to be worked out. We need to discuss how we're going to finish off our campus here. So that's another item that I think we need to move forward on. Certainly not, it's hard to displace one or to prioritize one over the next, but a variety of things. If there's something here we're missing, if there's something that you'd like to particularly put on your number one on your hit parade, if you could please let me know that would be very helpful for planning and deciding how we're going to use our resources. So again, just drop me an email, please. I think this is most important, or if there's something that we have not talked about that you would like to see talked about. So those are my comments on the on 2021, which is just kind of an interesting year. And looking forward to 2022, getting our people, our staff in the right place and helping them so that they can help us even more. Are there any questions or comments? Okay. Hearing none, let's move on to visitors wishing to address the board. Is there anybody that wishes to address the board? That's on now. Chief, do we have any? No emails? Okay, let's move forward to new business. First item on the new business is the approval of an extension to the agreement with Lauterbach and Amen for operational financial services. That was in your packet. And are there any, well, let me ask for a motion for approval first.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion, please. Trustee Jamerson. Saw you first.
It looks like there's 3 different parts to this proposal, and it totals a little over $180,000 a year.
Mhm.
And I realize that LNA has done a great job for the village. We were kind of in a lurch when Susie left, and there were a lot of loose ends, and you and Mike know better than anyone about those loose ends. But And I realize you're working on your organizational chart, which I hope would find a permanent position for some of this. $180,000 is probably 2 people on the payroll.
Mm,
Well, I'm just
I don't
saying.
think anymore, but I understand your
Well-
point. I understand your point.
Okay, well, that's my point. I think that we should, especially for accounting, I don't think we should be outsourcing accounting. I could be wrong. I know there's some issues with division of services and making sure that, people aren't doing deposits and, reconciling the bank or doing AP checks and reconciling bank. I understand that we are a small village. But I think that my personal opinion is I think that, I would hope this has a 60-day termination clause. And I would hope that sometime during the next 12 months, we would be able to work our way out of at least some of this. Because I think it's too much money. It's my personal opinion.
Okay. Trustee Clayton, you know what, Trustee Clayton, before I call on you, I think Trustee Haber had a point, and then maybe you can address all questions at the same time. Is that all right?
Sure.
Okay, Trustee Haber, please.
So I had similar comments as Trustee Jamerson had, and but additionally, 2 other comments. Number one, is it in the budget? Are we budgeted for this? And you can hold off your answer. And then number 2 is one of the expenses is to provide accounting and utility billing functions. And I thought that the new software was basically designed to do the utility bill function at, a kind of like a really easy way of, aggregating all that information and being able to get the billing out. And now this appears to be an additional cost on top of that software that I think maybe not more than 60 days ago approved. So those would be my 2 comments that maybe you can address, Mike.
Okay, Trustee Clayton, do you want to address those?
Okay, this proposal really reflects the experience that we've had in working through the financial operations of the village since about last April, when we realized that we had underestimated some of the requirements that we had on a day-to-day basis. What we're really doing with Lauterbach and Amen is we're replacing 3 people. We're replacing Susie, we're replacing Bob Fiakowski, and we're replacing Joanne, or the utility billing clerk, before then. And the $184,000 a year is actually less than we were spending on those 3 people, number one. Number 2, I'm in exactly the opposite position that Trustee Jamerson and Haber are with regard to outsourcing accounting. Accounting is basically a back office operation. It's one that has a lot of rules associated with it that have to do with separation of duties and so on, that require staff bigger than what we have. And the auditors have already told us that we need to be doing certain things differently. And the only way that we can conceive of doing things differently, at least from my point of view, is that we'll outsource the function, and then we can move people in and out of the function as we see fit, without having to go through the whole process of hiring somebody and then firing them. The accounts payable, the third service that's in here, the accounts payable clerk, is someone who's there primarily because we're not in a steady state. And I think the plan is eventually, once we get the new software, as Trustee Habers pointed out, and so on, we should be able to reduce that level of involvement from a personnel standpoint. But even having said that, the software doesn't operate by itself. Somebody has to input data, somebody has to make the necessary handoffs and so on and so forth. And so we're always going to need somebody to oversee the software. The software isn't going to operate. Bills aren't going to come in and automatically get paid without someone being involved in that process. Number one. And number 2, we also have to have a separation there. We have to have one person who's basically accepting and denoting the accounts payable into what codes they go into and so on. And then we have to have somebody else who actually issues the check. And then we have to have somebody else who does the bank reconciliation in order to make sure that it all flows together. And by the time we're done, we're going to wind up spending a lot more money than we're spending going in this direction. And Rick, I know you disagree, but the numbers are what they are. We're going to be spending less than we were spending before, and it's in the, we budgeted for this, and we're going to get, basically, we cannot operate right now the way we are sitting here. The amount of work and, it's going to take us at least 3 to 6 months to replace the system. We've been shut down by Assist 3 times in the last week. It's just not possible to operate with the present level of staffing that we have and do it effectively, efficiently, and correctly. And I think this basically does that. It provides the necessary people that we need in order to both get the job done accurately, get it done efficiently, and also meet the auditing requirements that we have with regard to separation of duties.
Trustee Hollander.
Yeah, philosophically, I disagree with the idea of adding staff. One of the disadvantages of being in a small village is that we can't be as efficient as if you're in a large village, and therefore we pay a price to outsource services that other villages might be able to bring in-house in a more efficient way. We outsource the ability for marketing, and we outsource the various accounting functions. We don't have a public works department. We have to outsource some of that. Maybe it'd be cheaper to plow our own streets instead of paying someone else to do it. So I think one of the problems we have is because we're a small village, we lose some of the economies of scale. And I'd rather pay a little bit more and have someone else who's an expert in it and can handle it comprehensively than to deal with personnel who may or may not be here consistently and provide us the same level of expertise. So I understand it might be more expensive. I can't address that part of it, but I believe that that's part of the cost that we pay for being a small village.
Well, from someone who is in the office every single day, it's remarkable how many calls we get about utility billing and the time it actually takes to research that. It's remarkable how many checks we write twice a month. And it's remarkable how many times we get called by SSAs for information. All of those things feed into the finance department right now. And I frankly, with the volume and then we have not been able to get to steady state because we had incredible change that happened without really through no fault of our own. It was the audit, and the auditors did not do a good job in terms of being efficient and using our time efficiently as well as their own. I'm not quarreling with their results. I'm just simply saying that was an interference in our day. We had the water meter change, which was not as smooth as I think we all would have liked to have had it. And there were other instances. So again, somebody sitting in the office every day and hearing the calls and all of that, I think that they're doing a yeoman's job right now, and we need help. We need help. So for what that's worth, Trustee Jamerson, please.
So I understand everything that Mike said. I understand what Henry said. I would just like to say that when I started with my company, my father's company, there were 6 people involved. So please don't talk to me about what a small staff can do. I've lived through it for years and years. We're not that way anymore, thankfully, but we had 2 people in the office besides the people that were doing the project management stuff. So yes, and the auditors every year gave us a note that we didn't have adequate separation of duties. I understand it, and they're going to continue to do that. So my concern is that what I'm hearing is that you have no intention of varying from, you're not planning on trying to move anybody off of LNA's. You're not trying to move anything off their plate anytime in the near future. It sounds like you're
that's-
going to be outsourcing them for maybe forever. And I'm against that. So that's all I'm going to say on that. And, you know, that's all I have to say.
Well, if it's of any comfort to you, as I develop this organization chart, that could well happen, that duties move from LNA back into the village, or we find a way to integrate that differently. I'm mindful of the budget. I'm mindful of the fact that we are a small village. We don't need a big staff, but we certainly need help to deal with our residents and all the calls that we do get. So Trustee Haber, please.
So just want to address one thing that Mike said, and that was that this is basically, LNA's proposal is basically the work that 3 other people did previously in the village. And I'm all for outsourcing when it's, when you bring efficiencies in and it's at a better price. But I'm just questioning whether those 3 people had other duties that are not included in this LNA proposal that we also benefited from as a village, that we will have to either replace with other people. So that'll be an additional cost on top of this. Because I presume that those other 3 people didn't only just work on what LNA is going to be working on.
Well, that would, excuse me.
Oh, Trustee Clayton, please, go ahead. Sorry.
Actually, Trustee Haber, it is all they did. And we are replacing them one for one, basically. So Susie was involved in a number of different things that she overlapped with some other people that are now doing those functions. But we had a process in the village that basically said you could walk into Susie's office and you could tell her you needed a check to pay for a bill that had come in your department, and they would sit there and write the check and give it to you. And we just can't operate like that any longer. It's not fiduciary. We have a fiduciary responsibility to the residents to do better than that. And we all have operated in tight, small situations before, but our village has a limited revenue source. We're already increased taxes twice in the last 2 years. We are now in a situation where we need to operate as efficiently as possible. And I actually believe this approach saves us money, including all the tasks that the 3 of them were doing before and what it is we're doing now. That's my point of view.
Trustee Jamerson.
Just one last comment.
Sure.
Susie was grossly overpaid for what she was doing, grossly overpaid. So when you take that into account, you can't use apples to apples. She had been with the village for, I don't know how many years, decades.
25.
How many? 25?
25, something like that. Yeah.
Decades. And she was grossly overpaid for what she was doing. So.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any other comments or questions, discussion? Okay, I'll call for a vote, please.
Trustee Clayton,
Aye.
trustee Dickin, absent, trustee Eastman,
Aye.
trustee Haber,
Aye.
trustee Hollander,
All right.
trustee Jamerson.
Nay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, the next item is an interesting one. It is approval to conduct a bid and engagement of a provider to replace the outdated system controllers and thermostats for the existing HVAC systems, not to exceed $55,000. Actual engagement to be conditioned upon the review and approval of the contract by the village attorney. And of course, that includes appropriate insurance. The reason for this is we have an outdated controller thermostats and we were without heat. If you've come into Village Hall recently, you'll know the vestibule is at, I don't know, 85, 88 degrees, and you walk into the lobby and it's, the control mechanism is lodged on my computer as well as all the individual offices here. And it's outdated. We've called the manufacturer and they don't support it. We've had people in here multiple times to help us reach some kind of steady state with this thing. And it needs to be replaced. We've gotten one bid to replace the system and so forth. And the whole bid with, let's see, including a maintenance program and some assorted other goodies came up to about $55,000. Trustee James replaced this Zonex system with Johnson Controls, something I think we've all heard of, and a company that's still in business. Trustee Jamerson was kind enough to contact someone who's doing work for him and see if we can get a bid that is lower. But I did not want to wait too much longer. The weather is changing and we'd like to have some kind of surety of heat in this part of the building, not just in the vestibule. So I come to you on bended knee, asking you to please let us go out to bid and not exceed this $55,000. Is Trustee Hollander?
Based on our last discussion, it might be cheaper just to get you winter coats. No, I really have no constructive comment. I'm sorry.
No constructive comment. Thank you very much for that. Trustee Jamerson.
If I can shed a little light on this, unfortunately, when we built the Village Hall, we had to take the lowest bids because that's what we're required, lowest responsible bids, which is what we're required to do. And the bidder on the HVAC system, who is no longer in business, provided this system, which there were issues during the construction with the system working with the furnaces that they supplied. It turns out the system was at end of life when we got it. And unfortunately, we didn't know that. The architect and the engineers said it was okay. And so it does need to be replaced. And these systems, this particular type of system, they only have about a 10 or 12 year life, believe it or not, on the controls. We have to replace the one in our office that's only 6 years old. And we're contractors. I mean, we're electrical contractors. We know what's going on, but the system we have is not working well either. When the mayor told me and Russ actually showed me the quote, I think it's high. I could be wrong, but our office has a very similar system. We don't have quite as many units creating heat or air conditioning, but our system was only going to cost us $30,000 to replace the entire system. So I am having that company, they're not related to us. They're an outside third party. They're going to be creating a bid for us. This happened before Christmas break week, and last week everybody was on vacation. So they're going to be coming in this week, is what I'm understanding, to do a review of the situation and get us hopefully a lower quote. If not, $55,000 is $55,000, but we'll see what happens.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
I thank you so much. You have no idea.
We haven't voted for it yet.
I know. I'm just thanking you for the motion, even just not even complaint, not even bad discussion. Is there any further discussion? Roll call.
Trustee Clayton,
Aye.
trustee Dickon, absent, trustee Eastman,
Aye.
trustee Haber,
Aye.
trustee Hollander,
Aye.
trustee Jamerson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Oh, my God, thank you. This- And we will report back to you on that. Thank you. Moving on to old business, we have kept those ordinances on the agenda. We don't intend to move forward with them right now. These are the ones that have to do with the negotiations with Thornton's over lighting and signage and so forth. And I think we've discussed that earlier in the meeting. So moving on to committee reports. Can we start with trustee Haber, please? For legal police.
Just that I know that we are trying to schedule the next meeting to discuss the new police union contract. But I don't believe that that has actually been established. I know that the mayor has tried to get that established, and I know it's imminent. Other than that, I have nothing to report.
It could happen. Any questions for trustee Haber? Building utilities. Oh, communications. Trustee Dickon has sent something around to each of you about the website. She's been doing one heck of a lot of work on that, really updating things, revising a lot of forms and so forth. So I know she sent a memo around. If you have any comments or questions, please get to her. This has been a big undertaking, and she really has shouldered it. She's really taken it on. So please get to her if you have any questions or comments. Building utilities, stormwater. Trustee Jamerson, please.
The building reports in the packet. December and January, February, typically slow months for construction. Although someone took out a permit for a new deck, which is weird in December. But our volume, construction value is a little over 10 million. 2019, it was almost 14 million. So we're not quite on track on that, but our permit fees are only about $3,000 off from 2021 to 2020. So things are picking up back on that part, which is great. So hopefully 2022 will be a better year for us even. So that's all I have.
Any questions? Next, woodlands and ecology. Trustee Eastman, please.
Sure. So we recently received a suggestion from a resident to look at potentially becoming certified as a international dark sky community. Basically, there were 2 other Illinois communities that have been certified this way. It fits reasonably well with our, environmentally conscious approach to our community. The main criteria, and I need to do a deeper dive and then discuss it with the mayor, and then we'll get something to, if we decide to make a proposal on it. But the main criteria has to do with village lighting. So we may already meet some of the criteria, but it's something that there may be some benefit. So I'm taking a look at that. That was just received recently, and I'm still putting the finishing touches on the Village Hall and Flatwood campus use policy, and hope to circulate a first draft of that shortly.
Terrific. Trustee Jamerson.
Just a quick question about the dark sky. I think it's fantastic if we can become certified for that. Is it just on the municipal buildings then, and like streetlights, or is it about residents lighting as well?
That's a good question. So they say, and I'm looking at the email now, they talk about the implementation enforcement of a quality outdoor lighting ordinance. And they have guidelines for the particular proposal, but I have not delved into exactly what that is and how that interplays with anything that we actually have implemented currently.
I can tell you that we were influenced by the dark sky standard when we prepared the residential outdoor lighting ordinance some years ago.
Oh, that's
And
good.
we actually followed it. We required full cutoff protection, no direct bulbs. And there's a lot of information in the residential outdoor lighting ordinance, which we took from dark sky provisions. The one area that we had to be a little bit of a compromise with was that a lot of people in Riverwoods like to put lights in their trees. So,
Yes,
when
I
you-
know.
and the mayor has some experience with this. So what we said in the outdoor lighting ordinance is anything after the date of the ordinance had to be aimed downward. It's a lot less of a problem if the light is on the tree aiming down than if the light is looking up. But we didn't require people at the time to change what they'd already done if they'd already installed tree lighting. I just happen to remember that because it was such an unusual set of facts that we had to kind of parse around.
Interesting. Well, that's helpful background.
Trustee Jamerson.
So just to comment on that, unfortunately, I don't believe that we enforce our own ordinance on that, because if you want to, I mean, I know the mayor's had issues with one of her neighbors, but if anybody wants to take a trip down Juneberry south of Deerfield Road during the winter and just look to your right after you turn off of Deerfield Road, you will see a house that looks like a prison yard. And I don't know how the person who built a multi-million-dollar house just to the west, to the east of it, it lives there. Actually, it's on the market right now, probably for that reason. But we don't enforce our own ordinances. So I'm not sure how well, you know, it's great to have an ordinance, but until we start enforcing them.
Felt like that guy in the movie Casablanca. What? We don't enforce ordinances? Okay.
Well, I'm shocked and amazed. So we'll dive into that one. And then there are the, well, anyway, okay. Are there any more discussion on that? Okay, moving on. Trustee Hollander, Land Use and Roads.
Most of my stuff was given by our village attorney and engineers, so no further report.
Okay. Finance and Economic Development, Trustee Clayton.
We should be signing the engagement agreement with Selden Fox here in the next day or two. And then we're going to, believe it or not, start launching the 2021 audit field work in the middle of January. We're still working on the BSNA, that's the new financial enterprise system. We're still working on the agreement with them. We've made some changes to the way we operate based on the previous audit findings, particularly with regard to bank reconciliations, and the budget is now in the system and being used. That's it.
Are there any questions? I'd like to give you a short report on NSSRA. I think, as most of you know, well, if you recall, we meaning the NSSRA, and I had the distinct privilege of serving as their chair for this period of time. So if I say we at some points, it's NSSRA, not us. We bought a building in Highland Park and had to renovate it. And then we have just recently sold the building in Northbrook. The total project, the total cost of the project, when I say the total cost, I'm talking about the purchase of the building and the renovation. The total cost of that was about $8.8 million. Here's the important part of it. 44% of that money was contributed by the foundation. That's private money that was donated toward that. So the partner contributions, the agencies, and we're one of 13 agencies that belong to the NSSRA, had to pay for 56% of it, just a little over half. That relationship, that public-private relationship, has allowed an incredible building to be opened. And we snuck in under all the wires. We got quotes right before all the trouble started with the supply chains and prices going up. We finished on time. We finished so far under budget. In some cases, we were able to add amenities that were only items that were on a wish list. It just all came together. It all came together. We've recently sold the Northbrook building. And as a result, the Village of Riverwoods is going to be getting a check from NSSRA for roughly $5,100, our share of the return. So we did contribute quite a lot to the purchase and the renovation, but we are getting money back as well from the sale. In addition to that, what we've termed a purposeful pause to increases in the member agency contributions for this year, and no contribution to the capital fund. The capital fund is being developed because there are other parts of that building that they would like to see renovated and put in for other uses. And that would be the sanctuary. As you know, that this was a synagogue, a temple that we bought that had an educational wing and some larger meeting spaces, and then the sanctuary itself. So the next, their phase 2 is to renovate the sanctuary, and that's somewhere down the road. They have a capital fund that they continue to hold separate for maintenance purposes, for roof repair, for HVAC replacement, all of those things, looking out over a 10 to 15-year period. So I would hold them up as a great example of a public agency that's done a great job in terms of budgeting, and a great job in terms of finding private sources to assist them in achieving that. And if you want to go over and take a look at the building, we can arrange a tour. You have to sign in and mask up through the whole thing, but it is simply, it's stunning what they've been able to do and accomplish for people with special needs, both children and adults. So I wanted to make that report to you. I am no longer the chair. I'm just got to be a member of the board. But it was really a very moving, it was very moving opening ceremony. It was, the building itself has been named the Slotnick Center after Mitch Slotnick, who passed away, but his family donated close to $2 million toward the whole project. So it's quite a place, And if there are any questions, Henry, I see your hand.
Yeah, so our net contribution was 95,000. Is that correct?
Roughly. What I have here is our contribution was what, 17, let's see, 15 is 60, about $75,000. That would have been toward the building purchase and the renovation contribution. The renovation itself, the contribution was $45,000.
Thank you.
Thank you. But we're getting $5,000 back. I mean, a check in the mail is a good thing, right? Trustee Jamerson.
I was at the opening. Chris knows this because.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And they did a really nice job. It's a wonderful space. It's going to be great for their clients, and they did recognize all of the member municipalities. And it was a very, very well done affair, and the building is gorgeous, and it's going to serve their clients really well in the future.
I think it's a great amenity for our community too, because it serves special needs children and adults, and I think that that's an important part of serving our residents is being welcoming to everyone. And if there are no other questions on that, comments. No need to go into executive session. Are there any comments from the board? Anything that we didn't cover, any items you'd like to have brought up?
Actually, I did have, go ahead.
Sure,
Rick.
Trustee Eastman, please go ahead.
Yeah, I did have one. Do we have an update on the Baby Vegas development? Have they moved that forward since the approval a month or two ago?
Oh, there's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. We'll
To
get back.
my knowledge, they haven't pulled a permit yet
Right.
to do any work. So
Okay.
I don't think
It'd
we've
just be
seen that.
interesting to see whether after all the discussion, they actually follow through on it.
Yeah, I don't know the answer. I don't think we haven't seen an application for a business license or a liquor license yet either, so.
Okay.
We'll
Excellent.
see. They could be having landlord issues. Any other questions or comments? Okey dokey, seeing none, our next meeting is January 18th, virtual at 7:30. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Trustee Clayton,
Aye.
trustee Ditkin, absent, trustee Eastman,
Aye.
trustee Haber,
Aye.
trustee Hollander,
Aye.
trustee Jamerson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Stay safe and warm.
Aye.
Aye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.